Welcome everyone to our training, Google Ads, Driving Ad Campaigns for Small Business. We have packed a lot into this session, so feel free to ask questions of Peter at the end of the presentation. I'd like to introduce Peter Topping. He's our SBMS mentor and digital marketer. Peter's been a part owner of a digital agency and continues to work and assist businesses in the digital space in a private capacity. So over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Madeline. Can you hear me? Am I coming through?
I can hear you and we can see your presentation.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm still in the cast, so same as last week. If I cut myself off, I'll log back in because it's somewhat unwieldy. And the other thing that was quite useful last week is when the signal broke up, a few people went into the chat and said, "You've dropped out," or "We can't hear Madeline." So please feel free to use the chat, and I'll try and keep half an eye on the chat just in case we run into some technical difficulties. So thanks very much, Madeline, for having me back. And welcome everyone, and also special thanks to Dorita, who I'm going to be working with in the next few weeks on her campaign, for allowing me to look at her campaign and to be able to make some comments on it, for the purpose of the course. So it's always great to have an actual customer from the actual market because it makes things so much more real. So last week I just talked about the basics, and which was get a Google email address, start an AdWords account, and use the bouncing ball of assisted setup to create your first campaign and write an ad, but only do it for search. And the main thing was to keep a tight budget. So really my focus last week was just getting people to overcome their fear or reticence of doing it and to go in there and actually just set up an account. Setting up an account is free and you don't actually have to activate it. But the main thing was to get yourself resourced to set it up and to keep a really tight budget and make sure it's only in Australia only. So I know a lot of people that was they were a bit undercooked, and some of that had already been done. So really what I wanted to talk about was, if you've already got a Google ad campaign that's out there, some tips on how to make it better. The most important thing I can say is that you have to give it time. Okay, so you've got to be patient and you've got to make a commitment to time. And that is the hardest thing for small businesses to do, is to actually commit to time. And as I said before, the minimum course you can do on this is about 35 to 40 hours. And we're trying to pack it into 2 basic 1-hour sessions. So the challenge is to find a way to get some value for your business and to remember not to feel overwhelmed, because there's a huge amount of content and you're using the same application that's used by Kmart, Bow Repairs, really, really massive national organizations. You get exactly the same platform as them. So you're not expected to be a genius in one go. I had a lot of challenges thinking about what I was going to do and how I was going to do it, and I spent a fair bit of time procrastinating. And in the end, I just thought the only way I can really approach it is to tell you what sort of questions I would ask of you if you came to visit me as a client in an agency, as opposed to having a chat around QVM and the market and SBMS. And generally people come to agencies with the following questions, and they basically say things like, I've got ads, they're not working. I've got ads, they're not getting click-through rates. I've got ads, they're not giving me any traffic. I've got ads, but they don't convert. I have ads, but I don't know if they convert. I have ads and they're too expensive, right? And each one of those is a session, right? So I'm going to be a bit general about what things apply to all of those situations. But if you get yourself in those situations, those are the classic kind of problems that you're gonna have, right? The most difficult one is they're not really working for me, and then you go, why? And people go, well, I don't really know. It used to work, or it didn't work, or was set up by someone else, that sort of stuff. But the others are really specific, and we can actually get into them and really drill in to try and find an answer for people. Spending too much money, not converting, not getting sales, or don't know if they're getting sales, or they're getting too much traffic or not enough traffic. So we can help them with that. And generally where you start is with an account audit, right? And these are the kind of questions, and I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and I'm going to read through them, and you might feel a bit overwhelmed. But really, if you've got an account, you need to be able to answer all of these questions. Okay, so I'm going to ask you how many campaigns you're running, how many ad groups you're using in each campaign, how many actual ads you're running, what kind of ads you're running. And what I mean by that is, are they sales ads? Are they lead ads? Are they sign up ads? Are they inquire ads? What sort of ads are you running? Are they Google shopping ads? Are they, I'm going to ask you all of those kind of questions. How many keywords you have running for each ad, right? And then I'm going to ask you what kind of keywords you're using, match, phrase, exact, etc. And I'm going to ask you if you've got a negative keyword list. So, and I'm only just getting started. So these are questions that you can ask yourself if you're going to audit your own account. Okay, I'm going to say, are your ads using site extensions? Are you using price extensions? Are you using Google Shopping? Have you set up remarketing? Are you using Google Traffic? Then I'm going to say, is your ad analytics accounts attached to your AdWords account? And like last week, I'll ask you, is your Google My Business up to date? And then I'm going to ask you if you've looked at your quality scores. So these are the kind of questions that I've asked you before I've even got to your website. So if you're going to ask for some help and you're going to go to a third party or you want to visit me, you need to sit down and audit all of your questions before you start, right? And if you don't know the answers, that's absolutely fair enough. You might have had it set up by someone and you don't know that you needed to know those answers, right? But those are questions that you need to ask yourself, right? And obviously, there's people here like Tony today who's a mentor, and those are the kind of questions that Tony can go through with some of the market clients to get an idea of what's going on with the account. I'm then going to ask you questions about your website, okay? Because Google Ads connect to a website, and the website is really important. I'm going to say, has your ad landing pages been prepped for SEO? Okay, if they're not well prepped for SEO, you won't be getting a good quality score. I'm going to ask you, do your keywords and your phrases, do they match the title tags on your page, the page titles, and the H2s, which are the subheadings on your title tags? So then I'm going to say, do your phrases match the title tags? Do your keywords that you're searching for appear on the page content in the text? Okay, Google's going to look at your ads, right, and says you are advertising baby grows under toddlers clothing. If your page doesn't mention the word baby grow but just has a picture of a load of beautiful tie-dyed outfits, you're not going to get much of a score because Google can't read that picture. Okay, so I'm going to ask you questions about how well you're set up. Okay, a lot of setup done by people who charge money for it is a bit lazy. Okay, so they don't bother with a website. They go, oh, that's the client's responsibility. That's nothing to do with me. That's SEO, and they'll just go up and set you up, but you might not do that well. And one of the reasons you might not do very well is because of your page setup.
Peter,
Yeah.
I've got a question from Drita. What's a H2 tag? And this is where I'm going to jump in for a moment and talk about a great little app that you can download. And I'm going to put the link in the chat box, and it's called Screaming Frog Spider Website Crawler. And what that does, there is a free version for Windows and Mac, and what that does is it allows you to download a website. The free version allows 500 links, but that will show you broken links, errors and redirects, page titles and metadata or descriptions. That's sort of like your H1, your H2 tags. It reviews meta robots and directives, href lang attributes, exact duplicate pages. It can generate an XML sitemap. It gives you a site visualization. So that's the free version. And so I would recommend any of the students here to download it and try it out. You lost me at hello. Sorry about that, Drita. But let's just play it by ear at the moment. We'll let Peter go on with the presentation. But if you could explain what the H1 and H2 tags are, Peter, that would be great.
Okay, so I will actually cover it later in the presentation, but I may as well just cover it now, right? When you look at a web page, it's got a major heading, which is called H1, heading 1, and then it's got subheadings, which are called heading 2, and it can go all the way down to heading 3, heading 4, heading 5, heading 6, right? And that tells Google what's important on the page. And so Google's looking for evidence, right, that they should be on the right page. So Google says your ad is about key rings. Okay, great. Does your page title, the most important part of it, mention the word key rings? Is the key ring mentioned in any of the tags 1, 2, or 3? Is there any pictures of key rings? Is there any text about key rings? It's looking for those pictures. It's looking for evidence that there's content on the page about that topic. Okay, so if you've got lots of inventory and it's to do with t-shirts, then you need to mention the t-shirt word lots of different ways. And if your site says T-shirts or TEE shirts or T space shirts, you need to have it the same way on the web page because it's trying to work out whether you're a scammer or whether you're, talking rubbish. So I'll give you an example later on. The last thing is, do you have a site XML? Okay. The site XML is for Google the equivalent of an index of a book. It means it doesn't have to read your pages randomly. It can say, what's the title of the book? What's the chapters? What are the headings, etc. Okay, so it's just looking for an easy way around, right? And it's going to say, when was this last updated? So it just wants to know that you've put some effort into your product so that your ads are reasonably fresh. So I can go into more details about site XMLs, which is to say, are all your products, categories, and services listed, in the XML? But that's getting really, really far into detail. But when I spend time with a client, then this is the kind of stuff that I want to know, right? And the analogy is like that I was thinking about is like a $1 coffee from 7-Eleven, right? The ad is like the $1 coffee. It's really easy to see it. It's really easy to click on it. Google might charge you 88 cents for a click through that ad. But actually, the coffee or the ad represents a whole industry that gets a load of beans from a farmer in Colombia and gets them onto Elizabeth Street at 7-Eleven for 99 cents. Right? It's you're only seeing the end product and it's really easy to criticize, but there's actual vast enterprise and complexity around it, right? So don't think about the ad that you get, that's the end result. If you get a sale from the ad, that's even better, but that's the end result of a really, really big process. And amazingly, it is really, really easy to do. So it's easy to focus or criticize the results, right? But if you get anywhere with it, you've achieved an amazing amount of results. Given the complexity, what can we actually do if you're a market trader and you want to look at your accounts, right? The most important thing you can do is make sure the structure of the account is right. We can talk a little bit more about keywords and quality scores. The most important activity you can do is to get really, really specific, okay? To not run anything general in your account as a small business, but to be really specific. And the last thing you can do is track what you're doing so you've got some metrics. And I said already, the other secret ingredient is time. Okay, time to work on the account and time to develop a bit of a skill profile. And if you don't have that time and you're getting someone else to do it, which is fine, it's really good if you've got a bit of an idea about what they should be up to. So we've all been employees and we've all been contractors and we've all run our own business. It's really good to know what everyone's up to, especially when you're paying them, because sometimes it isn't what you think it is, So having the business knowledge as the business leader is as important as being able to do it yourself. It means that you can actually get some value from money from the person who's doing the job for you. So don't be afraid to get someone to do it for you. So I wanted to talk about account structure. And what I mean by that is how are your campaigns set up? You should be running different campaigns for different geographical areas. Okay, and different campaigns for different ad types, such as search, display, and shopping, and other different kinds of intents. And an intent word is, if you watch any of the Google videos, is a funny word, right? What they mean is what's the intention of the client or the ad, right? Is it sales Or do you want someone to contact you? Do you want them to pick up the phone? Do you want them to email you? Do you want them to visit the website? Do you want them to sign up for an EDM? Do you want them to sign for the course? So if you've got a different intent other than sell a product, you should have a separate campaign for it. Now, in the case of small business or micro business, you don't really run into that problem, because what we want to do is sell stuff. And our other goal is get someone to come to our location. So in bigger businesses, they need to run different kinds of campaigns, and that's all they mean by intent. What do you intend the ad to do or the customer to do? For most of us, it's just sales, right? Now, I want to try and do something a little bit tricky, which is that I want to show you what I mean in a real account, right? So just hold on for 1 second. If I can move the search bar. It's not letting me go to the... Okay, so what I mean here is I can show you. I'm hoping you can see the screen.
We can see it, yes.
Okay, so what happens here is these are campaigns, right? This is a list of a campaign of a guy that I work with. I'm going to show you something from a paused campaign, so I don't breach any confidentiality about an active campaign. But you can see that this is a shopping campaign and that's a search campaign. So they're different campaign types, right? And this person's got a good setup. They've got different campaigns for Canberra, and they've got a Canberra, New South Wales shopping campaign, and then they've got a shopping campaign using Google Merchant Online. So you can see in their account that it's been well set up, okay? So when I started talking to Rita, I went and had a look at her business, and I had a look at hers, and she's a small business and she wants to get back to being successful with this particular product, and she's really only running one campaign. Okay, so the campaigns can look different, but it's what you're looking for in a campaign. It's what I mean by what does the setup look like. So it's just about having different campaigns for different for different situations. So now, oops, I want to go back a page. Okay, so when I was talking previously, I said different geographical areas, right? So in certain cases, that can be a campaign for Melbourne, and it can be a campaign for people visiting Melbourne. So you can do a campaign for the people that you want to attract, and then you can exclude those people from a separate campaign, which you can aim at people from Bendigo, people coming from Adelaide for the footy, that sort of stuff, to say, come and find us at the market to buy your products. Okay, and then again, item 2 was different kinds of campaigns for search, display, and shopping. So when you talk about shopping, that means using Google Merchant Center. And when you talk about search, that means when people are just searching on Google and typing in queries. And the display section is when you see an ad at the beginning of YouTube, or you see an ad which is embedded in the Sydney Morning Herald or The Age, or a magazine type show online, or Sunrise or something like that. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of campaign structure. When people start out, they tend to just mix and match, but I'm asking you to break it all down, right? Which goes back to the original point I had, which is get specific. Okay, so the next place that I want to go at, and I'll just try and get back to presentation mode, is that every campaign should have ad groups, okay? And each ad group should be based around a theme or topic, and each ad group should have separate ads in it, okay? And each ad should have its own keywords. So it's just like a pyramid. You've got a campaign, and inside it, you've got some ad groups, and inside that ad group, you've got some ads, and each ad has got its own keywords. There's a lot of stuff out there which says it should only be 5 words per ad and all of that kind of stuff. When you deal with most small businesses and you look in their accounts, they've got between 10 and 100, okay? Don't feel embarrassed about it if you've got 200. It's just something that happens. But what it really means is that we should break our ads down as much as possible. So if you're someone like Chris at Aussie Fleece, for instance, you would need to break your ads down into Ugg boots, scuffs, or you could just call them, or you could break them down into a theme such as footwear, and then have separate ads for scuffs, Ugg boots, moccas, etc. And then you might have a second campaign for stuff like homeware, which is stuff like skins, rugs, etc. Now, the reason you're doing that is so that you can control your budget. If you've got a high yielding item like a skin that costs several $100s, you're going to be making more margin on that than you are on a smaller item. And you also don't want to mix and match all of those terms together in case you end up bidding against yourself. So if we were to do footwear, we would break that down into, like I said, moccos, scuffs, and Ugg boots. And then we could break them down into men and women's if you wanted to. And we could attach our keywords to each of those ads to try and make them really, really specific. So it just gives you an idea of what your of how to separate out all of the products in your campaign. And obviously, when you're starting out, the main thing is to try and keep it as simple as possible, and not advertise a brand or a store, but to advertise something that you really want to sell. Okay, because that's effectively what we're what we're all about, and keep it really targeted. If you've already got a load of keywords, now's the time to break them out. Turn off all the ones that don't work and break out the ones that do work into little topics, and start their own ad group and their own ads for each of the ones that do work. So there's nothing wrong with starting out just pretty general, as long as you stay on the case. Okay, and I'll show you an example later on. So don't worry. Okay, last week I talked a little bit about where do I get my keywords for my ads, as thinking about what people are searching for is pretty difficult, right? And the longer you've been in the trade, the more difficult it is, because you end up thinking like a business and not like a consumer. So last week I talked about think with Google, and I also talked about letting Google recommend some AdWords to you, and just only accepting the ones that you like. So those are the two basic strategies. Then I also talked briefly about the fact that you could use other products like Ubersuggest, which Madeline and I both like. You can get 3 free searches a week on Ubersuggest, and so you can't overuse it, right? But it is a really good tool, and I'll show you some examples of that. The other thing is, if you've got a well-engineered site, Google will scan your site really well for ideas. And that's what I was talking about before. How well is your site set up? Have you got the right titles in there? Have you got headings in there? Have you got the right page content in there? Because the better your site is, the better the Google scan will give you good results. Okay, so it's worth putting that effort into that kind of engineering. It'll give you good ideas if you've got a well set up site. If you haven't got a well set up site, don't worry. It's something that you can work on, and the mentors have been really good at raising the quality of sites from what I've seen as we've gone along in the last 3 or 4, I think 3 RMIT semesters that I've worked with. I've really seen some people really lift the quality of the sites, right? So if you use something like Ubersuggest, now this can be quite difficult to see, right? You can type in a keyword idea, and when I was looking at Allinson's, I thought, okay, so what do I know about souvenirs? Absolutely zero. So I started here, and I also looked at her site and began a bit of a breakdown. What I did is I typed in the keyword ideas, and they gave me a list of keyword ideas. Now I'll try and make it a little bigger. Let's see if it gets bigger. No. Anyway, okay. Well, you'll get a copy of this anyway. So you can see that they've gone Australian souvenirs online, cheap Australian souvenirs online, Australian souvenirs online spelt wrong, but then Canadian souvenirs, Darwin souvenirs, Melbourne souvenirs, Japanese souvenirs. So the quality of what we're getting here is really, really mixed. Okay. The thing I like about it is it tells you how busy they are compared to a metric of 100. So this tells you that it's the busiest by 110% of all the terms, right? So we've got to have that first term in there. They also tell you that on average people are bidding up to $1.62 for every click. It's really difficult to get near the top in paid search, and it's 50% difficult to get there on SEO. Okay, So what I like about this is it tells you what other people are doing. Cheap Australian souvenirs. It's a much smaller search term. It's much cheaper. It's it's hard to get near the top, and it's relatively easier to get near the top on SEO if you decide to go down the SEO route. Okay, so these are really useful, and the sweet spot you're looking for is something with high volume that doesn't cost too much. Okay, and and preferably it's not being difficult. But that's like saying I want it high quality, fast, and cheap. Generally you can only have two of those. You can either have it fast and cheap, or you can have it high quality. That they're exclusive. But what it does do is gives us lots and lots of things to work on and ideas of what other people are doing. Now you can export these to a CSV file or to clipboard, and then you can open them in Excel and copy them into Google, right? So or you can write them down. But it's a really good place to start in terms of getting souvenirs online. And it's where I started so that I could help Dorita and bring myself up to speed, right? So you're not doing anything that someone like me isn't doing. Now, there's other things that you can also do in here. They'll tell you a little bit about which websites are really good at the terms that you're looking at. So if we look at Australian souvenirs, it tells us underneath when we click on it. Oops, sorry, I've got to go back one page. It tells us down the bottom here who's doing really well, who the real competition are for that word online, and how many links and things that they've got and how well they've done on the internet. So if we look at Hard to Find, I used to work with them. They're one of my clients in BigCommerce. They're based up in Sydney. They're two women. They're enormously successful in Australia. They rank really highly, right? They don't get many website visits according to the audit, but remember it's proportional. So they get 50% of the people above, right? They've got 23 backlinks. Their authority of their domain, so how important Google ranks them out of 100 is 45. And what you can see here is they do really well on social media. They've got 27 shares on that page. But the people below them have got 198 shares. So it tells you a little bit about who the competition are and whether that is popular on social media. So you can work out whether to make an effort on something with social media. Because if other people are doing really well on it and it's really popular, and you know they're in the same business as you, then that's a little bit of gold for you. Okay? So you can know to use it in Google Ads. You know that you should probably have that word on your website, and you know that it's good for social media. One of the best things that you can do as a small business is find out who's really successful online and copy them, right? It's not illegal to copy and mimic their activity. It's flattery. You're not stealing anything. You're going, well, they're doing this online, so I may as well do that. You don't have to be unique, right? You can just say that person does a really good job, and I'm going to use them as an online mentor or an online guide, and I'm going to mimic or copy their approach while I develop my own. So you're not stealing anything that's private. You're just looking at them in the public domain, and you're copying them, their behavior, just in the same way as we all do it with what clothes people wear and things like that. We seek inspiration. So again, you can export data from here on souvenir ideas, and it tells you what some of the great search terms are and where they're going. So in this particular one that I've looked at, it's 5 great ideas for souvenirs. So it gives you ideas for blog content. What are other people writing about to create content for their site, and how successful was it on, in this case, Facebook and Pinterest. And if we're in Facebook, we can see how successful some of those posts were. So it gives us intelligence about things that we should be advertising on and things that we should have in our website. Okay, so it just is another way to think with Google or or Google keywords. It's just an independent piece of intelligence that's out there that helps you do your planning. When you've got your list of keywords, there's another bit of secret sauce that goes in here. And when you come to look at your own keywords now, one of the things I want you to look at is, when you're auditing your account, is the match type. So every word or phrase can have 4 statuses, and I'm going to go in to explain what they are, and it can get very confusing and messy, but I'll try and give you a simple explanation or summary at the end. if you're looking for clothes, right, it's a bit of a mess. Yeah, if you type in clothes, it's just pretty pointless having that term because there's too many different types of clothes. If you're going for kids' clothes, then you need to break it down. Baby clothes, toddler clothes, infant clothes, or tween clothes, right? They're all different markets. They're all going to give you different results, okay? So if you've got to be really careful about your words that you choose and being too general. Because if you're being too general, your ads will appear in a greater number of people, but it's a greater number of non-specific people who may or may not be interested in your product. So the secret is to try and only show your ads to people who are interested. Okay, so we can be more specific than just talking about clothes or kids' clothes, right? We can have kids' clothes in there if we want to do, but you're much better off to go to toddlers, infants, tweens, or baby if that's what you want to do, right? And set up a campaign or ad for those particular ones. So when you've got your ad, your keyword types, Google offers you 4 options, right? The first one is the default. It's broad match, right? It just means anything that we can find on the internet that roughly meets the criteria of clothes or kids' clothes, we'll try and put your ad up there. Okay. It's a way to get lots and lots of ads out there, but it's not necessarily going to get you sales, right? The modified broad match is variations of your keywords, right? So they'll say, okay, well, anything with clothes plus cloth plus other words joined into the word clothes, it's going to give you lots and lots of variations. If you've got more than 2 words together, then you're a phrase, and it will mix and match those phrases together. So if those words all appear in a string or command, they'll put you in. And lastly, there's exact match. And exact match means they've got to type it in exactly the way you've got it. So cheap kids clothes online, right? That means your ad doesn't show up unless the word cheap is first, kids is second, clothes is third, and online is fourth. Okay, and that's the tightest thing that you can definition that you get. You'll get way less traffic, you'll get way less clicks, but if the product's right, you'll get more sales. So most people start on broad match, and then they progress through to something else like exact match. Having said that, one of the things that Google's trying to move towards with things like Siri is phrases, because people don't think in single words. They generally write a query such as Father's Day gift ideas, yeah, or Melbourne souvenirs, or Australian gift ideas, or Australian souvenir ideas, or things like that you're that they're looking at. So try and think not of words but of phrases, because they're going to be better for you. Okay, try and make it a bit real. I've got some examples here. So broad match on the first line, okay, for tennis shoes. So the words we're testing with is tennis shoes. If you use broad match, you'll get just about anything that they consider close to tennis shoes, okay? So if you use modified match, it has to have the word tennis plus the word shoes, and it can be anything that they think is roughly a shoe and roughly tennis. So you would appear if someone typed in, what tennis shoes was Naomi Osaka wearing at the Olympics? You would turn up, okay? It's not necessarily get you a sale, okay? So if you use phrase match, which you put quotation marks around, then they have to use the phrase tennis shoes. So if someone wrote in Nike tennis shoes or Naomi Osaka's tennis shoes, you would definitely turn up, because you've got the word tennis and shoes together, okay? If you put exact match, they would only show up if they just typed in tennis shoes, okay? So you've got to be a little bit careful. I'm a big fan of phrase match, personally. It reduces the traffic and it gets you closer to what people are typing in. And because Australia is a very multicultural society, we often type phrases in there that are different because the way we use English is not all the same. So I'm a fan of the phrase match system. Having said all of that, don't get overwhelmed with it. Just get started. Start with broad match and then tighten it up as you go. Okay, but just to let you know that they're all out there. And if you've got an account and you've got a word in there that's costing you too much money, it might be the best way to start is changing it from broad match to modified broad match. If it still spends too much money, make sure it's part of a phrase. If you've already got the phrase in there, included in something else, turn off the word and leave the phrase on. Okay? So you look at your account, if you've got single words in there or just pairs of words that are spending money and not doing good, close them off or turn them into phrase match or exact match. That's a simple way to reduce your spend and the reach of your ads. Okay? Because if you want to be a brand, go and join Kmart, right? If you want to be a brand, be Flight Centre. If you want to sell, tickets or, shoes at the market, then make sales ads. Don't worry about being a brand. So I thought I'd do it one more time just to kind of cover it, right? So it basically, you can talk about the different ways that you can talk about men's jeans, right? So if you did broad match, you'd get all of the following. Yep, men's jeans, jeans for men, denim pants, workout shorts, carpenter jeans, and jean guy, right? If you type that in. If you specified a bit more details, then you get men's jeans, jeans for men, jeans for sale, men's designer jeans, right? Because you're tightening it down more and more and more. Okay. If you go phrase match, you can see that you get a tighter set of results again, which is the third column. Cheap men's jeans review, buy men's jeans online, because it's got to appear as part of a phrase. Okay. And you also, when you get that order, you start to get geographical locations. What are the best men's jeans, in my location? If you get exact match, you will only turn up for men's jeans. So don't type it in, then you're not going to get they're not going to turn up, because it won't add the word men, it won't add different versions of jeans to the end and things like that. It'll just be for that exact term. So I've also put in a column on negative keywords. If you use broad match, and I talked about this last week, you get all sorts of stuff. And I gave the example of my cruise clients where they have to go through and specifically have a list of everything to do with cruises that are to do with celebrities or car cruise control. Otherwise they bleed money and their ads appear where they don't want to. In case of Jeans Guy or Guy's Jeans, right, it's a brand of like skunk, of hydroponically grown dope. And you'll appear in all those weird kind of sites that you probably don't want to waste your money on. So there's an advantage to having a negative keyword list. Again, don't overthink it, right? Start out on broad. If you've got words that are spending too much money and not getting conversions, change the match type, okay? I'm a fan of number 2 and number 3, which is just basically modified. Okay, so the last thing you can do is work on your quality score in terms of simply looking at your site, right? And I'm just going to cover this and then we'll go and actually look at a proper site, okay? Whenever you write an ad, Google gives it a quality score. And if 2 people write the same ad, then the ad with the higher quality score goes further up the page. And that means some ads go down the bottom of the search and some ads go up the top of the search, right? Some ads make it into major national publications and some ads don't, right? What usually defines that is the quality score, okay? And Google will let people with higher quality scores who bid less money go number 1, okay? So you can throw money at a campaign and offer $2 or $3 or $5 a click, or you can actually have a really good quality campaign and Google will put you up there because it knows, Google's got complete confidence that your ad relates to content on the page that people will probably be interested in buying, okay? And we kind of got sidetracked before and I listed lots of the things that Google's looking for your quality score. So it will say, is the title of your ad relevant to the page, right? Is the title of your ad relevant to the text that you've got in your ad? Is the title of your ad relevant to the landing page URL that you say you've got in the ad? When I get to the ad, if all those things are relevant, does the page have a meta description? Does it have a title? Has it got subtitles? Does it have content on the page? Does it have a site XML, right? This person has all these products and categories. Are they listed properly in the XML? And then Google will go, yes, what a great page. I love you. And it will give you a high quality score. Or it'll go, I don't know, it's a 5. Yep. And then you're with everyone else. So the simple things that you can do to work on your site that costs almost nothing will give you a better quality score. So if you're selling a product, you better make sure that the product that you're selling and the ad that you're selling is on the page in text detail when Google looks at it, because that will give you a higher quality score. So it's to stop spamming. That's why it's there. So if you're selling gift cards or you're selling socks, then you need to land on a page which has got socks all over it, right? And the type of socks that you're selling. If you're selling socks for Father's Day, make sure it says that in text on that page that it's a gift idea or it's a Father's Day gift idea, because Google wants to know that. If you can't do that, set up a separate page for your campaign so that's really well optimized. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about Google Shopping and then I'm going to show you. Google Shopping is a fantastic application, but you have to spend time and effort setting it up. The easiest way to do it is to set it up from your own shopping cart like Shopify or WooCommerce, right? There are 2 really good videos on it, because in order to use Google Shopping, you have to have an AdWords account, but you also have to have a merchant account. And these links are there to Google YouTubes. I've talked to Madeline about doing a separate session on it, but really anything I can cover in 45 minutes is superbly covered by Google in a couple of 5-minute videos. Now, if you're going to use shopping, it's a big commitment, right? Like I said, you have to have a Google account and a merchant account. You need to have good product photos. You need to have good product descriptions and all your prices, okay? If your system doesn't automate, you have to update your Google Sheets every 30 days to keep it keep it going, okay? So when I looked at Dorita's campaigns, she said to me, oh, look, it used to be really successful and now it's not really converting so much. And so I drilled into the account and I looked in there and I thought, okay, is it set on auto update? Is there a sheet doing this? Who was responsible? And she had a young man working for him who was doing that. And I don't know, whether he was from a company or not, but actually no one's doing that anymore. So that might be one of the reasons why the campaigns aren't performing, because Google will check, when did you last update this? If it's not fresh, it'll push you to the bottom. Okay. The last thing about that though, and this is the danger, if you use Shopify and you load up all your products, okay, Google will optimize around whatever's successful. And that could mean that you're spending all your money promoting a keyring, which costs $5.60, and you make 60 cents off, okay? And instead of the high value product, which might be the hoodies, might be the bags, might be the rugs, might be the towels, stuff where you make money on your product. So just be a little bit careful about putting popular cheap product on there and eating up your budget to sell stuff that isn't making you any money. And that's the secret really to using the Google Shopping, is having good inventory and only putting up the inventory that makes you money. Obviously big companies can put up inventory that doesn't make them money because that's part of the brand. And the trade-off is, I buy a keyring for $5.60, Kmart loses money, but Kmart gets my email, gets my phone number, gets my street address for delivery, and gets to put me in their database, right? And it's cost them $1.86 from a Google Shopping click, right? So they're really willing to pay that and lose money on the product. If you're a small business, you don't really want to do that, right? Because if the person's here as a tourist, or they're one-off shoppers, or they're over from Adelaide buying Ugg boots or footy scarves or whatever, right? Then their lifetime value as a client might not be that high. So just be a little bit careful when you look at Google Shopping. It's fantastic, but you need to make money. And not all products are created equal. So, okay, I'm just going to, before we go to the Q&A, I'm going to go into an account, and I'm going to just talk about an actual real account for a second. Okay, so Medea asked a really good question, which is does a lengthy description make for a better quality score? And the answer is no. Okay, a lengthy description makes the ad really difficult to read in a tiny amount of space on Google. The amount of space you've got is the screen of your phone. Okay, so it needs to be accurate. Okay, so what is it? Be really specific. Men's shorts, men's fashion shorts, men's summer shorts, men's fashion shorts on sale. You know, just be really, 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 really specific, and don't be verbose. Short is good, right? Google loves a bit of brevity in ads, right? And it loves a bit of length of description on websites. So just make sure you remember that. Okay, so what I want to do is I just wanted to, let me just get rid of that. I'll just give it a second so you can see the account, right? So I wanted just to talk briefly about looking at the account. And I've just looked at some data from an account that I'm working with at the moment, right? And just you can see the different campaigns they've got, whether the campaign is running or not running. You can look at my period last year, and you can see that they went up and down as they experimented and tried to work out what to do with Google. And you could see the numbers of clicks they've got. You can see the amounts of budgets that they experimented with, and you can see how many impressions, that's how many times their ads appeared, how many clicks they got, what their interaction rate was. So they actually interacted with 5% of all the people that they showed an ad to. That's really good. They paid 68 cents and they spent $130, right? Okay, and they got, you know, a conversion out of it, right? And it told them what their conversion rate was. Oops. So in that particular campaign, it gives you that particular summary. If I go into that, I can see what ad groups they've got, okay? And they've got a basic campaign for Victoria, and then they've got something called a dynamic campaign where Google actually inserts words into that, right? And I can go into this particular ad group, and I can look at the words broad match, broad match, broad match, broad match. What was the broad match term? Is it on or off? You know, how much did, what was the cost per conversion? How many clicks did it get? How many impressions did it get? So how many times did it show up? What was the CTR, right? Which means click-through rate. A CTR of 13%, anything above a couple of percent is good, right? Is really good. So it's a popular word. It really engaged the audience, right? It cost them 51 cents each time. How much money did they spend? How well did it convert, right? And when you look at this, they add a lot of words, right? And that's why, you know, I now work with them to try and help them give a better quality, because they've got a lot of gold in there, but unfortunately, like gold, it gets mixed up in you know, lots of different stuff that's all there. Okay, and you can look and see what their negative keywords were, right? And the answer is they didn't use any. Okay, and there's lots and lots of keywords for their particular area that they're probably wasting auction terms on. Okay, so that was just to give you an idea of what someone else's account looks like, right? So I go in there and I look and see what their click-through ratio is like, how many AdWords they've got, whether they've got their ads set up in separate campaigns, how many ads they've got, if they were modifying the words to try and stop any wastage. You know, those are all the kind of things I do to try and then go in and add some value to their accounts so that they can get the customers that we've agreed that they're looking for. Okay, so they've done a really great setup job. And that setup job isn't good enough because they want to do it better. They know that people are clicking through. They know that the product is out there. They're really successful. They've got a great EDM database to sending out emails. They've got fantastic reviews online. People really love their product. So therefore, it's the way in which their campaign is set up which is the problem, not the product or Google itself. Okay, so when I came to talking to Dorita, she has a great little campaign that had been set up, and she's really put her foot in the water, and you can see here that what the search was like and what the conversions were like, right? So this tells you how, you know, how well in that time period we were going that we were looking at in terms of search and conversions. And it also tells us that she was only running one campaign, and you know, I won't go into her billing details, so I've kept that. I just put $1,000 as a mystery amount in there because that's obviously confidential. But what it tells her is, where did people find her on mobile phones, tablets, or computers? And what you can see is that souvenir hunters, 83% of them were looking from a mobile phone. So you better make sure your ad looks good on mobile phones, and you better make sure your website works well on mobile phones, right? And luckily she's using Shopify, so that's going to look good, okay? And you can check all the different things. So what can I look at? Was my click-through rate? Okay, my click-through rate was better for people who are on a computer, and then for people on mobile phones, people on tablets didn't really do that well on it, right? Don't over-focus on computers because they were actually a small part of the actual overall traffic. Yeah, so that's where we're that's where we're looking at, right? Interesting things that we can look at is whether she was successful on the search network or the display network or on Google Partners. And last week I said focus on the search network, right? Because it's easier to manage when you're first starting out. And you can see that her ads were overwhelmingly more successful, and 93.2% of the time were on the search network. Okay, so it gives you good information about where you're successful and not successful. You just have to use it, right? The other thing is, when was she successful? Okay, so if we look at the hour of the day, this tells you when the reader was successful, what times of the day. You can see that's late in the day and it's in the evening, right? But what's more important is if you look at the day of the week. So Monday was her best day. Yep. And what time on Monday? You can actually look at that and you can see when people converted over the day. Okay. So people liked to really convert or buy or click through her ads in the afternoon, right? And a few of them around about 11 o'clock in the morning. So when you look at this, if we look at clicks or impressions, okay, we can see that most people looked on Sunday, yep, or on Saturday or on Friday, not that much during midweek. But when we change that to when did they actually buy, right, or when did they convert, Monday, right? So that tells you something about your clients. They're looking on Sunday and Saturday, which means they might have found you on Monday, or on Sunday or Saturday, or come to the market. But when they actually buy online is Monday, okay? Or they've got time on the weekend to do research online, and then they make the commitment to buy on Monday. You know, I'll send the rallies in Singapore. I'll send the, you know, the rallies in UK or Ireland or whatever, the nephews and nieces or whoever it is. I'll send them some, you know, t-shirts with koalas on from the souvenir shop, right? Often we think on the weekend and act on Monday. So the detail it gives you is really useful, right? And what that really means is that we can suspend our advertising effort between Friday and Monday, okay? So you're better off to spend $50 a day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and $20 a day on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, yeah? Or nothing, or 10 bucks, yeah? It helps us understand when to spend money. So I'd say, okay, we want to bid more for an ad on a mobile, and we want to bid more and spend more money on over the long week, over, you know, Friday through to Monday. And that would be my advice to the client, right? So this is the kind of useful information that you need to drill into and take the learnings of and say, okay, every day is not equal, and I'm not going to treat every day equally. I'm not just going to chuck 50 bucks a day out there. I'm going to look at it and work out, you know, what's you know, what's going on. Okay, so when I clicked through and looked at this campaign, right, I came up with a different set of results than I did when I looked at the previous campaign, right? The display format is completely different from that other AdWords campaign. And the reason is that when I looked into it, Saria's first campaign that was successful was set up using Google Smart Campaigns, and it was set up by someone else. So the amount of data and the performance details are different to the in way they're presented to a traditional search-based campaign. So if you see this, it just means they've set you up using a smart campaign. Okay. Now, you can drill into it and get more and more details about who exactly, what exactly went on, and how your money was exactly spent, right? So this tells you where the impressions were, how many times it appeared on a mobile device. It's just yet another summary of what went on, right? Who actually clicked on your ads, gives you a bit more data of when they clicked on your ads and what the number was, where they came from. So none from YouTube, none from Maps, and none from Gmail, right? There were 75 clicks on partner websites, but it doesn't tell us who they are, right? In this kind of stuff. We can look at where the people were. Okay. Okay, location. Okay, it's not going to tell us the details that I wanted it to. And it can also tell us about the people who converted. Okay. So 86% of new visits to the site came from the ad. They spent 123.69 seconds, and they looked at an average of 104.82 pages. And then they looked at 35. There was 35 different products in the in the basket, and it can link you through to your Google Analytics, so you can drill in for more details. So it's about spending time, in your account in order to learn something. So what I wanted to do at this particular point was then just take some questions from people about maybe their own accounts, and I can offer you some advice or help for real life situations relating to those early slides that I talked about, which is, I've got ads, they're not working, they're too expensive. If I can take some questions, that'd be a really useful thing to do. So Madeline, did you want to ask any questions to kind of kick it off?
Yes, look, I've got a question with the ads. When you are pointing the ads through to the website,
yeah,
how important is it to have your image names correctly and having your alt tags? How does that correlate with your Google?
That's to do with the quality score. Okay,
Yeah.
they're all 1%ers. Okay, they're all 1%ers. So if you've got an image on there and it's called 1234.jpg, right? Google's going to say, well, what's a 123.jpg? If your image on there says Piggy Wiggy cotton socks girls, right? It's going to go, okay, these are cotton socks, and they say the word girls, right? And it'll go, well, Piggy Wiggy, maybe it's a butcher, right? But the rest of it they'll get, okay? And what it'll say is, okay, so we've got funky socks, and we're advertising for funky socks, and it's girls socks, and I've come to the page, and all the information I can see on the content and this image that I know is there, but I know the image is called, Piggy Wiggy funky socks girls, right? It gives them some information. That's a 1%er, right? They'll give you 1 out of 100. It'll then say, what's the page called? Oh, the page is called categories, socks, girls, funky, right? Okay, that's that's in there, right? It'll also then say there's a product description which says as offers me one color, children's size 6 to 12, and it says 100% cotton elasticated socks, blah 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 blah, right? Those are all 1%ers. Yeah, it's got a size, it's got a color, it's got a description that mentions the word socks. So those are all just, you've got to look at it like a multiple choice exam. You can get past if you do 51 questions right out of 100, right? But you may as well try and get 99 or 100. And if your technology doesn't allow you to get 100, it doesn't matter, right? You should try and still get 80 or 90, because that's going to increase your quality score. So that then allows you to bid less money and be closer to the top in your ads. And getting that stuff right is free, so it's worth doing. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I'm just going to add on that one, Madeline. I mean, it was me that raised the pictures last week.
Yes.
And I tend to have things with my pictures like men's wool felt hat, and then a style code, and then the name of the business. Is that too much to have on the
You
picture?
don't need the style code. That's irrelevant, right? But and it knows your URL already, knows the name of the company.
Yep.
Because that's the website that it's on. So
Yep.
what you've got there are the important things, right? You've got the category and you've got the product. Yeah.
Yep.
And if the product's then got a name, that's good, right? So the category is men's hats.
Yep.
The product is beanie 3, right? The beanies, and then the product, your description is purple beanie 2 or something like that, right? So you've got all of those things lined up. That's perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And the main thing is just to try not to reuse the same thing, the same tag.
Okay, Peter, so we were using like men's wool felt hats. Would you actually then give it call it a Peter Topping hat, or you would actually give it an individual name?
Well, if you've got lots of them, right? If they're all the same style, it doesn't matter because they're grey, black, navy, French navy, you know, taupe, all of that kind of stuff. That doesn't really matter, right? But if you've got grey men's felt hats, Kangol, right? And then you've got all the colours as well, and then you've got another brand, right? Then you should break that out.
Okay.
Right? You can't have too much detail. Because then if someone says, right, that Jazzy Z has been wearing a Kangol men's fuzzy felt hat, right, then they can type that in and you've got a better chance of turning up, right? Because he's a celebrity and people know about their hats.
Okay.
Right? And so, again, don't overthink it. It's a 1%er. Okay? What I would say is to you is, I'd say, Jenny, is that written down on the page? Is it in the title? Is it in the text? Is it in the header? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Because those are the easy 1%ers. And then is it in the image? Right?
Yep.
Are you, off that one description, you can get lots of 1%ers done. Yeah. So the category is men's hats, right? The brand is Kangol, and it's a, French navy clip front. That's all gold.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Because again, you've got to think, what would the lazy person do, right? They would do nothing, right? What would the semi-lazy person do? No, they might just put in hat or hats. Then what's slightly more effort? Well, men or women's hats or kids' hats or summer hats or winter hats or show hats or racing hats, or, give it more detail, right? And then, well, why not give it a brand, right? That's then the next effort thing. If I've given it a brand and I've got lots of brands, then I've given myself another layer of search. And then if it's got a specific name, well, okay, let's give that product an actual name, because the person who searches for the name of a product is most likely to buy.
Peter, Dreed has asked a question. How long can the picture name be?
I don't know is the answer, right? But if you think that meta tags are only allowed to be 180 characters with grammar and white space, or you're going to be crazy to go over anything over that limit. Because what happens is, if you try and stuff for SEO a word to try and over influence Google, will just wipe you out.
Yeah.
Right?
They don't like the keyword stuffing. I would limit it to say 5 words, so long as they're not big words.
Yes.
So what we do with our tag.
Say again, Julia.
So what we do with our tags is we will put the description of the item. So we'll say it's a 26 centimeter kangaroo, and then we'll put the divider, and we'll go 26 centimeter kangaroo, Allenson Souvenirs, Act UVM. So are you telling me not to put those last two things?
No, okay, so it just depends, right? Okay, so I'm talking in a different context here. So what we're talking about here is specifically for ads. In terms of putting your brand in there, right?
Yep.
Then that has some value for SEO.
Yep.
Okay. But there's image descriptors and there's alt tags when you look in your media of Shopify.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you can put different things in the different categories of the media. So what's the name of the image? What's the title of the image? What's the description of the image? Most of it, like in WordPress and Shopify, allows you to break that down. And then the image itself gets an alt tag, right?
Right.
And the alt tag is supposed to be a brief description.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you to, especially if you're advertising, to focus on product and category.
So hang on, just when you're talking about the alt tag, are you talking about when you're going through a Shopify to the end and then it's got down the bottom, it then comes up with an extra tag on the end of the product? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the alt tag is when you load the image into the Shopify, right?
Yeah.
Or into WordPress or WooCommerce, it asks you what the image is called.
Yeah.
Right? And it says what's the title of the image, what's the alt tag of the image, what's the description of the image.
Right. Okay.
I'm talking about the part that's alt tag.
Yes. Yeah. I did see that. Okay.
Yeah.
Drita, while we were talking, I used Screaming Frog to download some of your pages.
Yeah.
And do you mind if I share it?
No, that's fine. I'm happy for any support.
Okay, so I'm going to
stop sharing, Madeline. Let me just get out of it. Okay, it's happening. Right, you should have control now.
Okay, so I'm just going to share. So I'm just going to bring this across. Can you see the screen with the spreadsheet?
Yep.
Okay, it's showing me what your actual images are called.
Yeah.
So you've got Allen's Souvenirs, QVM, and then there's a heap of stuff there. But see, this one's copy of, copy of, copy of. So really, before you upload any image to your website, they should be named according to the description before you upload images.
I'm surprised that's still there. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so you can't edit them in there. You can edit them, but it's just easier if you get them done first.
Yeah. So first page banner. See the copy. I know that you've been able to copy from within the website, but then it's really got to be renamed if you're going to be recopying like that. The other one I wanted to show you, and this is why I like this, is that it will give me the page titles. So you've actually got the page titles.
Yeah.
So, and the title length is pretty good. You don't want them too short.
Yeah.
And you don't want them too long. So these are all pretty good. It's usually the title is, what is it, about up to 65 characters.
Go back to where we were before, Madeline, when those copy things, at what pages were they on?
That is on, the address is Files, Articles. It's under Articles.
Okay.
So if you download this app, then you'll be able to see that's been resized, and I would say that's been resized by Pick Resize, the app.
Yep.
And hasn't been renamed.
Okay. All right, I'll get it down. I'll download it.
Yeah, so that's really, really good to know. Now, these are the H1 and H2 tags that you've got on your page. Yeah. So the H1 are the main headings.
Yeah.
And then the H2 are the subheadings and where they are and how many occurrences you've got. So it gives you good information, and it tells you what, what the title was.
Right.
That you use. It also gives you the length of the title, the number of characters. It gives you the structured data.
Maybe we need a session on going through what it should be and how to fix it. Like, I mean, I know how to fix it, but a lot of people wouldn't even know this, and looking at this from a layperson's point of view, this is just freaking me out.
So,
yeah.
Well,
I'm happy to do that.
You can just pay me hundreds of dollars, right, and I'll do it.
Hey, mate, don't, I'm about to, don't you worry.
So, yeah, that's why it's important. I said, don't get overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
Only do what you can do, right? Because you're not, you're not Big W, right? And you're not employing an agency.
No.
If you've got an agency that's doing SEO for you, right, and they're not giving you this kind of advice, and they're charging you a couple of $100 a quarter or a month.
What annoys me, sorry, Peter, what annoys me is that we did have someone doing SEO, so why wasn't that fixed up then?
Because as a business leader, you didn't know, right? So
Yeah.
what you can do is you can go away from this course, right, do absolutely nothing, but at least you can get some value from, like, I know a little bit about cars, so I can tell the mechanic what I want.
Yeah.
I don't want to fix
Yeah.
it myself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I just give it to him and say, oh yeah, something up with the car,
Yeah.
you know, I know that his bill will start at $500, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how it works. So the benefit of these sessions is sometimes not what you can do yourself, but your ability to hold your suppliers accountable.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? You've taken phones and computers in to be repaired, right? Have you ever opened it up to make sure they've done the repair? No, exactly, right? So in this particular case, that's what you've got to do. Now, Madeline, if I could share the screen again, I just wanted to give you another example that might be useful.
Sure, I've just stopped.
So what I was talking about before was setting up the ads and having shopping ads. And here's a really good example about how we can add value, right? So we've got Father's Day coming up. Okay, one of the big search terms is Father's Day gifts and Father's Day gifts idea, right? There's no international visitors here. We're really short on domestic tourism at the moment, right? But Australians are going to buy in their thousands gifts for their dads, right? Okay, and so they're going to search for men's gifts and gifts ideas, right? So what happens is that we've got all of these souvenirs here. There's some great ideas, right, that you can send to your dad overseas, or, you know, and especially if you're doing Mother's Day overseas, because in Singapore, UK, Ireland, Europe, it's on a different day to what it is in Australia, right? So what we can do is we could put up an ad, a shopping ad, or a search ad for Australian men's gifts ideas or Father's Day gift ideas, right? Now we've got two choices here. I can say to the reader, okay, you've got a page here, let's make it better, or we can set up a new page, right? But if we're going to go Father's Day gifts ideas, we're going to get a low quality score because it doesn't say anything about Father's Day, right? If we go on men's gifts ideas, it says men's gifts ideas right here in the URL. Google loves that, right? What is it? It's a collection, could be a product, but that's okay. It's a men's gifts ideas and it's an Australian gift, right? It then says here in the title that it's a men's gift, right? It doesn't say the word ideas, right? It says we have a wide range of gifts for men in your life. I'm going to say to her, okay, the thing I want you to do, to read, is I want you to write more text, because Google likes a minimum of 500 words per page, right? If it doesn't look right, we'll settle for less. But I want to see the words gifts, ideas, men's gifts ideas, Father's Day gifts ideas in here, right? And when Father's Day is passed, we can just edit it out. It's free. It takes 60 seconds just to take out the word Father's Day, right? And we can replace it with Christmas ideas when we want to. So what I want here to increase the quality score is I can either advertise under men's gifts or Australian men's gifts. But if we're looking for inspirational shopping to give people ideas of what to buy dad, right, then we need to have the word ideas in there, right? So Australian men's gifts, we can just put the word ideas into the text. Then Google's going to look at us and we're going to go, it's about men, it's about gifts, it's got the word ideas in it, and it's got the word Father's Day in it. We love you. The reader, move to the top of the list, right?
And you see where you've got Australian men's gifts, yeah, and you add ideas. That is a H1 tag. So you put in a paragraph and then you put in a subheading that relates to men's gifts as, you know, ideas, but a little bit different wording.
Right.
But it's still got that connotation in it. And then you put in another paragraph. So you try to break up the page with paragraphs and subheadings so that you're using a H1 and a H2 tag.
Yep.
Now, so what I'm going to say here is how can we make this particular page better, right? Okay. So what we've got in here is I'm going to give you the classic sales, man sort of thing.
Yep.
You're all product, right? You're all sausage and no sizzle, right? It's a black man's kangaroo patch wallet. And you've told me how big it is. It holds 8 cards. It's got 2 separate compartments for notes, right? All sausage and no sizzle, right? So who's it for? It's a great idea. It says gifts in the picture. It's a great idea for dad. It's a great idea. It's a great souvenir. Easy to pack, easy to post, high quality, kangaroo leather, unique, gift idea for Father's Day or Christmas or whatever, right? So you've got the product in here, but there isn't. You've got an opportunity to put a bit of descriptor in there of text that will help.
Okay.
Right? Now, if I want to know what the alt text is, right, I can just inspect the image's properties by right-clicking on it, and it'll tell me how you've named it and stuff. Yeah. So the graphic is black men's, that's good. Black wallet, that's really good. You've got the name of the brand in, and you've got QVM in there, right? And we know that it's a product thumbnail. So, you know, I think we've made a really good start in the men's black wallet, right? You might want to write in there, you might want to get rid of the word QVM, because what does that mean to Google?
That's Madeleine's fault.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about saving space here, right? So like QVM's at the end source here, right?
Yeah.
If you want to put Queen Vic Market into some of your images, right, do that at a brand level, like in your logo.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. I'm happy to take it out. That's fine.
So now, and you've got in here Alison's souvenirs, which is fine, right? But I would say you can leave that in there, but I would like you to perhaps put in the word the word gift in there.
Okay.
Because right now, you know, we don't have enough souvenir buyers.
Okay.
You know, and just to tell you, so Dorita, I spent time looking at your account trying to work out why it wasn't performing as well.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is that, you know, you were doing really well until it looked like there was no, you know, while lockdown, ebbing, right? You know, it was early in the year, people were out, it was sunny, we thought we'd got through it, you know. So, you know, in some of that analysis, I think that it had nothing to do with the quality of your account or your ads, right? It had something to do with the fact that there was just, you know, it was over, right?
I also don't know whether now is the time for us to actually put a lot of money into Google Ads, because that's the thing that I've been dubious about for a while, because until we know that what's going to go ahead, are we better just to set back a bit? That's my question as well.
Yeah, or are you better to be a giftware company than a souvenir company?
Yeah.
Right, you still sell, they're still souvenirs, right? But it's how you pitch them. Are they gifts?
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, it's just one of those things when you look at your account, you know. And I spent some time thinking about it, and I suddenly thought, you know what, maybe I'm looking for some evidence that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Which
is actually, you were going great because it was summer and we were all out again, thinking, oh, thank God that's over. You know, and then it wasn't. You know, the gold standard was still working in New South Wales in those days. So you know, it probably might be nothing to do with the, you know, once things pick up again, it might just start re-performing again. But in the meantime, let's have a strategy for now.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so does that, what I've said there, does that make sense about linking it up with Google Ads and having it tighter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? We do need to finish up.
Peter, I've got a question. Now, when we make a collection, is it like for example, I've got a collection on magnifiers, and then I've got different pages on like different products. So is it like to have a one nice description on the collection page, or should it be on each and every page?
Well, it depends on how much time you've got, right, and what you're advertising. If you want to advertise the collection as a group, right, then focus all your effort on the collection as a group, because that's your lead. That's where people are going to land, right? So it's the same as you get 100 people who walk through the store at a weekend, right, and a certain amount of them will convert. Yeah, the chances are they'll convert if you have a chat with them, right? That increases the level of conversion. So if you focus on a collection and you optimize that collection really well, have all your descriptions that's there, that's great, right? But you're going to get more conversions if you then put a tiny bit of effort into the individual product, right? So we're talking about 1%. As if 100 people come through, 10 click through, you might get 5 conversions, but if you optimize each individual product, you might get 6. It's just about how much time you've got. So I've got 22,000 cruise departures in my inventory, okay? I can't look at every page. Yeah, it's impossible. I'm one person. Even if it takes 1 minute to access them, right? I don't have 22,000 spare minutes to optimize them, right? It's just not possible. Okay. So what I do is I choose to put my effort into areas where it's got the biggest amount of reward, right? So traditionally what I would do is I'd focus on Royal Caribbean, P&O, Carnival, etc. All those big volume cruises out of Sydney, cruises out of Brisbane, all of that kind of stuff, right? That's not running. But where I'm putting my effort now is into very, very, very expensive $25,000 trips to see the Northern Lights or go to the Arctic. Yep. Because what happens is that the people who've got lots of cash and are most likely to travel and can get a permit and can go business class and can put down the money for 2023 are those people. So I'm choosing to spend my time there. So you have to look at your inventory and you've got to say, I've got 2 hours a week to do this. Where am I going to put my effort in? You know, as small business people, we can't fix everything. So we have to make some decisions about what we're going to do. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Right.
So yeah, focus on the collection because it's easier and it has a lot more product.
And is it also better to remove the word collection and like to have a real short URL? And is it possible to remove the word collection in Shopify?
No, not really, because
No.
but Google knows what a collection is.
Okay.
Yeah. It would like it better if it said product and category, but you know that it doesn't rule the world, so it can't. Right. So,
any other questions? All right. Look, I'd like to thank you, first of all, Drita and hubby Steve, for allowing us to actually access your website and talk about you and and get onto your ads, Google Ads account. You know, we appreciate that. So thank you very much for that.